have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
The Gay USA, I'm Andy Hum.
I'm Ann Northrup, and boy, are we chock full of news this week.
Pride is busting out all over. And we have reports from here in the United States and abroad, along with attendant controversies.
But some good news is that the U.S. Supreme Court has let stand a ruling protecting trans students.
Great victory. President Biden hosted a White House Pride event, signed a bill creating the National Pulse Memorial, and made a major lesbian appointment.
LGBTQ activists in Arizona are calling on their out bisexual U.S. Senator Kyrsten Sinema to end the filibuster or lose their support.
A high school valedictorian in New Jersey got censored for talking about his journey with his sexuality, but he soldiered on.
We have a couple of major deaths to talk about today: a pioneering out gay editor at the New York Times and a presidential candidate who cared enough to come on Gay USA. In fact, let's make that a quiz until we get to that. Who remembers who that was?
The battle of Germany versus Hungary over LGBTQ rights came to the field of their soccer match.
A court win for gay couples in Hong Kong as the rest of the country is being completely devastated by China.
And a historic victory for trans and gay people murdered by the Honduran government.
Loki, a Disney character, has come out as bisexual.
And Queen Latifah, a real person, has made it official.
Certainly more impactful, I hope.
Well, did you have a nice Pride?
I had a very exhausting Pride as one of the organizers of the Queer Liberation March here in New York, but it was a fantastic success with 60, 70,000 people marching, bigger than ever, our third year.
I want to thank you for putting it on. I had a wonderful time. I haven't been completely well lately, but I made it through the march, and it was terrific. Marched with friends and saw so many wonderful people.
It was terrific, and it was an incredible crowd of all sorts of people, which was very heartening because that, of course, is what we were after. So, but it was not the only event in New York or elsewhere. But let's start by looking at the New York events because we have some wonderful pictures from our pal photographer Donna Aceto, who has been kind enough to share them with us. Here we have the drag march on Friday night with the legendary icon Rollerina there on the left, and someone whose name I'm forgetting on the right. I apologize for that. Jackie Rudin will kill me for that. Let's continue. Huckleberry Ken, one of the originators of the Queer Liberation March and leader of the drag march. Huckleberry is a genius, and what a great outfit. And there's a drag march participant advertising the Queer Liberation March on Sunday. We promote. And then Saturday brought the 29th annual New York City Dyke March. Again, thousands and thousands of people in the street. Dedicated
to Black Dyke Power.
Yes, this was something that was started almost spontaneously at one of the marches on Washington in 1993, and it just caught on and took off and is now an institution around the country and the world.
I was on the sidelines, and it was very inspiring and invigorating.
So here are a few little shots by Donna Aceto from the Dyke March. It's our duty to fight for our freedom. This is celebrating at the end of the march in the fountain at Washington Square Park. And then this is at Bryant Park on Sunday before the start of the Queer Liberation March. These are posters that were made to honor the mostly Black trans women and others who have been murdered just this year in this country. And this is the tip of the iceberg, but we wanted to really remember and honor them as the important human beings they were, and that was assembled. No justice without disability justice. We had a big bus to carry people who wanted it, and we had wheelchairs for those who wanted them. So this was just one of the banners. And then this is the front of the march with the main Queer Liberation March banner, and just the beginning of the tens of thousands of people marching down 7th Avenue. Another
look off on time, which was wonderful.
Oh, yeah. Well, we knew if we didn't take off on time that the crowd at Bryant Park would only get bigger and more unmanageable. As it was, we filled the street for blocks with people waiting to march. And it took about an hour to get everybody into the march and heading downtown because there were so many. This is what greeted us at Washington Square Park. We had refused to work with the cops, rumors to the contrary. We had told them we didn't need them, told them to stay away. Last year,
sent an army.
They attacked us last year in this very same spot with these very same squads, and they did it again this year. And this is what they brought. We marched that whole route down 7th Avenue without cops, without barriers, everything peaceful, no incidents, and yet these people felt a need to show up and be provocative.
Well, Mayor de Blasio showed which side he's on because he went to an event rather than going to any of the Pride events. He went uptown for a reception with shots, by the way, from what I read, with the Gay Officers Action League, and said what a disgrace it was that they weren't included in NYC Pride. Now, Gay Officers Action League, or any cops in uniform, can't march in the Queer Liberation March because it's a protest march, and the department would never allow that.
Well, first of all, by shots, you mean alcohol, not COVID vaccine. Queer Liberation March, working with ACT UP, by the way, had a great health fair at Washington Square Park, which did supply COVID vaccinations and offered people joints in return, joints for jabs. Huge success, the health fair. No mayor, no city representatives, as his representatives. I really think Goal has exploited this situation to say, you're being mean to us. None of this had to do with Goal. It had to do with the NYPD. Those pictures you saw of the cops amassed at Washington Square Park, that's what it was about, excluding cops from the main Pride Parade and from the Queer Liberation March, saying, you're not welcome, we don't want you. Not Goal. If Goal members want to show up and be part of it, not in uniform, representing the police department, they're welcome to come, but not as representatives of this militaristic strike force that is there to provoke us and harm us. That's what people are upset about.
You've obviously had some influence on them with this campaign because, they held some sort of a press conference where they said, oh, we're going to be more sensitive and we're going to do more training. Well, you're only doing it because there are problems. And,
And they held that press conference about being more sensitive before the Queer Liberation March and still showed up in this riot gear to come after us. So where is the sensitivity to the LGBTQ community?
Now, New York City Pride, which has had to cancel their march for the last year, and basically the big one, they did have some events. They had a 3-hour extravaganza on television, which was but
oh my God, I watched the whole thing. It was so crushing.
One of the grand marshals, though, and they had a diverse group, was our old pal, Dr. Dimitri Daskalakis, there with Sam Champion of Channel 7, who's the out gay weatherman. So it was good to see Dimitri out there. And they marched, for a couple of blocks? I don't want to get it wrong. I wasn't there.
Maybe a little more than that, but, a few cars, a few people. They had a stage set up at 23rd and 5th with pop singers doing heterosexual songs.
And
I didn't get that.
Our old Gay Cable Network pal, Dale Hogan, sent me a picture of Tulsa Pride, where they had a huge, look, this is Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a tough state for us, but they had a huge Pride celebration.
Maybe that's why they're going to hold the Miss USA pageant there in November. More on that later.
All right. So we go to the news?
Yes, please.
We had a huge win at the Supreme Court. This was a case they decided not to hear, but they upheld the Fourth Circuit ruling that trans student Gavin Grimm, we have a picture of Gavin there, cannot be prohibited from using the same restroom as other boys. The case was set to be heard by the Supreme Court in 2017 until Trump withdrew the guidance that said trans students needed to be accommodated, and they sent it back to the lower courts. Gavin won again. But while this is not a national precedent, it does apply to Virginia, where his Gloucester County High School is, and to states of Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, and West Virginia.
This has been going on for 6 years. Gavin Grimm is long gone from high school.
And college, I imagine, at this point.
I would think, in Gloucester County. But he has stuck with it every step of the way. He said, I'm going to keep pursuing this. I don't care if I'm no longer directly affected. This has to be won. And he did win it. Now, Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas voted to take the case, but they were vastly outnumbered. So we got past them on this one.
Not taking the case is in itself an important precedent. So.
Absolutely. And the fact that we have the support of Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett and Kavanaugh and Gorsuch.
And Gavin can go to alumni events at Gloucester County High School and use the restroom of his choice.
Well, I don't know if I would do that if I were him. All right. Well, the White House held a Pride reception, which was nice, where the president signed the bill designating the National Pulse Memorial in honor of those murdered at the nightclub in Orlando.
Right. That was passed by the Congress almost, unanimously, I think, in one of the houses. Maybe it was in the House. And President Biden named Jessica Stern as the next U.S. envoy for global LGBT rights. She has been the executive director of Outright Action International for the past 11 years, and she's an adjunct professor at Columbia School of International and Public Affairs. Now, Secretary of State John Kerry created this position in 2015 under Obama. It's been vacant during the fascist regime of Trump. The current Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, says it will be an ambassador-level post now.
Well, that's nice. And Jessica, as you say, has been there for 11 years at Outright, when it was still EagleHerc, the International Lesbian Gay Human Rights Commission. She's a long time advocate and activist, and a terrific person to fill this post.
And staying on the State Department, they flew the Progress rainbow flag outside of headquarters, an historic first there. And they're going to let passport applicants select their gender without documentation on passports and things like that.
The White House also issued an executive order mandating equity in federal services, including diversity considerations and inclusion across the government. So they keep passing these orders, mandates, guidances, guidelines to increase equity for all of us. Also, there was a little dust up at Nellis Air Force Base in Las Vegas, where the Air Force Base celebrated Pride by having a drag show with a couple of the stars of RuPaul's Drag Race. Well, this was a little upsetting to right-wingers in the neighborhood who raised a lot of concerns. But the commander of the Air Force Base said, "Get over yourselves." Everybody enjoyed it. It was a good time. It was done completely appropriately in a family way, and we're sticking with that.
But our
nice.
LGBTQ friends in Arizona are not enjoying the performance of Senator Kyrsten Sinema. The 140 of them wrote to her demanding that she support an end to the filibuster, threatening to pull their support if they don't actually. Well, what do I got here? They wanted to end the filibuster because we can't pass anything, including the Equality Act. And they note that Phoenix has a higher percentage of LGBTQ people than Chicago, New York City, or the Silicon Valley. So get with the program, sister.
We also missed one White House event. They're going to hold an event for trans and non-binary youth, where people will be sharing their stories. They're going to broadcast that. Look for that coming up from the White House.
In other state news, Alaska has revised Medicaid regulations to cover medically necessary coverage for trans people. The case was brought by Lambda and settled.
Also, the ACLU is suing Tennessee and Georgia for their anti-trans new laws. And HRC is getting into the game in Florida, suing over their trans sports ban.
California has banned travel to 5 more states that have anti-LGBTQ laws. They've added Alaska, Florida, Montana, North Dakota, Arkansas, Florida, Montana, North Dakota, and West Virginia to 12 others.
And in New Jersey, the Attorney General is apologizing to the LGBTQ community for years of attacks on gay bars. The Attorney General is vacating the penalties that were imposed on the bars, in some instances forcing them to shut down. They found so far a record of 104 gay bars that were targeted over the years, and they think there may be more.
In 1956, they closed a bar in Asbury Park, saying in the citation, "It served men who rocked and swayed their posteriors in a maidenly fashion." This is the kind of stuff that they used to do in those days. Well, none of them are still in business, though.
Yeah, no. In Loudoun County, Virginia, there was a huge fight at a school board meeting. The school board was trying to talk about new procedures to validate trans students, and the KKK and the right wing showed up to disrupt the whole thing, charged that this was disgusting to support trans students, and also charging that this was all involved with critical race theory. This is the new approach that's being promoted on Fox News and elsewhere, trying to conflate objections to pro-trans policies and so-called critical race theory, which is really just about teaching about the racist history of the country and slavery as an event. And the right wing doesn't want any of this because they're all white supremacists. And so now they're adding in trans issues, and the school board meeting just went nuts. And we're going to see a lot more of this. It's happening all over.
Well, they're trying to calm things down in New York. Governor Cuomo signed the Gender Recognition Act, giving New Yorkers the ability to update their state identifications and birth certificates with an X gender designation. It also waives the old rule that required you to publish name changes in newspapers. Also, no more doctor's note needed when changing your gender marker. It allows minors to update birth certificates. Danny O'Donnell was the lead sponsor in the Assembly, and Brad Hoylman, our senator, in the Senate.
It's also a nice story from Winnemucca, Nevada, excuse me. I told myself that before the show. Winnemucca, Nevada. where a local lesbian decided that she wanted to organize some pride event, maybe a couple of people waving a flag in the streets. Well, it's now expanded to street closings, a fair, all sorts of events. The whole town has gotten behind it. And this turns out to be the town that Armistead Maupin designated as the hometown of Anna Madrigal in the Tales of the City series. So he's behind this too. So Winnemucca, Nevada is getting on board with Pride. Very
less good news in Milton, Massachusetts. A gay couple, Lee Michael McLean and Brian.
Didn't we talk about them last week? Is there more?
Did we?
It's one of my hometowns. I remember it vividly.
I thought we discussed it. We didn't get over, but all right, let's move on.
If you have an advance on the story, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go.
Well, just that the police are seeking criminal harassment charges against the harassing neighbor.
Okay, good. Sorry.
All right.
Well, then let's go to Voorhees Township, New Jersey.
All right.
Oh, wait, have we skipped over some stuff? We have.
Well, we're certainly going to talk about, are we ever going to?
Queen Latifah. I think it's time to talk about Queen Latifah.
Please, this is big news. We buried the headline.
We did.
We've been talking about Queen Latifah being a lesbian for years, but she made it official at the BET Awards, where she got the Lifetime Achievement Award, finally mentioning her longtime partner, Ebony Nichols, their son, Rebel, and wishing everyone happy Pride.
It was quite
Ebony, my love.
Yeah. It was, she said, Ebony, my love, Rebel, my love, peace, happy Pride. I saw the whole thing. She was quite moved and emotional during the whole thing.
This is following the precedent of Jodie Foster, who, when she got the Golden Globe Lifetime Achievement Award, came out in that address.
And the BETs had a lot of LGBTQ content. MJ Rodriguez from Pose was one of the presenters. Lena Waithe was there presenting, and she was all over the broadcast.
And Lil Nas X stole the show with a blue gown and got a red hot kiss from a man.
Well, he gave the kiss, but he had not, everyone was mad, including to him, that he had not been nominated for any awards. So he invited himself onto the show, and they gave him a performing slot. And it was a big success. Everybody, standing ovation, ending with a kiss. People go wild. Yay! So the BET Awards were very LGBT this year.
Can we go back to Nevada?
Sure.
Well, Miss Nevada, USA, Cataluna Enriquez will be the first trans woman to compete for the Miss USA title in November. She previously won the Miss Silver State USA title, competed in trans pageants previously, and worked as a fashion model.
And a designer. She designs her own clothes. She's 27. She's Filipina. And that is the pageant coming up in November in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that I mentioned earlier. So it looks like she's going to get a good reception there in Tulsa.
Okay. All right, let's go to Eastern Regional High School. Did we do this?
No, we did not.
All right. Okay. So a gay kid, Bryce Dershin, 18, was the valedictorian. And when he started talking about in his address as coming out in freshman year, the principal, Robert Tull, took away the microphone and the speech, crumbled it up in front of him, and gave him an approved speech to read. The audience said, "Let him finish." So he gave the speech that he wanted to from memory. He was given another microphone and a standing ovation. We'll link to a video report on this. And he concluded, believe in who you are, believe in our correct pronouns, etc. The superintendent of the district directed the school district attorney to file a complaint with the United States Department of Education about whether Dershin's civil rights have been violated.
And you can see that he added rainbow and trans flag colors to his cap and to his gown.
And his dad was there giving him full support.
Yeah, terrific. Also, in addition to the Queer Liberation March in New York, which is the alternative people's march, no cops, no corporations, no BS, as we like to say, that idea is spreading. And San Francisco, Chicago, LA, and London all had people's alternative marches this year, and all very successful, all very popular. I'd like to think this idea is spreading and we can have more of this going forward.
All right. Attention, fellow seniors. HRC and SAGE released its long-term care equality index, securing pledges from 78 institutions to pledge a commitment to caring for LGBT residents. We're going to link to that report, but you can go to hrc.org to read it now.
And in Houston, Texas, the biggest LGBTQ senior residence opened, the Law Harrington Center, named after two major donors. This
112 apartments.
I assume this is low-income housing, although I didn't read that explicitly. It will include a health clinic and a lot of other services and amenities. This also, and I assume also that this is not restricted to LGBTQ.
You can't do that.
That would be illegal.
In Ohio, the legislature sent anti-LGBTQ medical refusal in the state budget. They slipped it in to Governor DeWine, and he has a line item veto. I don't know if he's going to be willing to get rid of that horrible clause.
He's against it.
Good.
And what do we make of the surrealism in everyday life of our First Lady of New York City, Chirlane McCray, reminiscing about her lesbian days as a young woman in New York?
She does it every Pride and talks about being a member of Salsa Soul Sisters, etc.
And hanging out at Bonnie and Clyde's. The amusing thing to me was that Bonnie and Clyde's was a bar that I went to and others went to in the 70s and maybe 80s. I'm not sure when it closed. And she mentioned it and said, "How many people here remember Bonnie and Clyde's?" And no one reacted.
I remember Bonnie and Clyde's. But she also, her main issue is mental health. And she does all these mental health conferences with communities of faith. And I want to ask you, Chirlane, have you ever looked into how religions hurt people's mental health at all?
She and the mayor, her husband, were appearing at Destination Tomorrow, a center in the Bronx, an LGBTQ center that helps kids and everybody. And that was part of their tour de Pride, which again did not include any of the marches.
An update on our gay football player, Carl Hassett. His Las Vegas Raiders number 94 jersey became the highest seller in the NFL following his coming out. We also learned he's a registered Republican, but that can be cured. The NFL declared football is gay in a video welcoming all.
And did you see the video?
Yes.
It's all just words, but it says football is gay. And then doesn't it say football is lesbian and football is
yes, trans, everything. Everybody's welcome.
And viewer note, I proved how old I am by referring to Sha'Carri Richardson, our new Olympic runner heroine. I said she ran the 100-yard dash. Well, they don't run the 100-yard dash anymore. This was the 100-meter sprint that she is running in the Olympics. And Tim also said, what about all the skaters who came out this year? Caitlin Weaver, ice dance from Canada. Kevin Asmoy from IMOS from France. Jason Brown from the U.S. There are a lot of people coming out. So congratulations to all of them. Greg
Louganis 100 years ago. But they did run the 100-yard dash on the days of Bonnie and Clyde. In Wisconsin, Governor Evers and the Department of DHS announced...
Evers.
Oh, thank you. Evers. He's a good guy.
Yep.
Announced gender-neutral options for parents on Wisconsin birth certificates.
Nice. And the long-awaited National LGBTQ plus Women's Community Survey is now available to be answered. So women in the community, we will put a link in our show note for you to access the survey, and Urvashi Vad, who's one of the driving forces behind this, is scheduled to be here next week, and pending other emergencies.
Pioneering activist, looking forward to talking to Urvashi.
Very much, but we'll tell you all about the LGBTQ Women's Community Survey.
Speaking of community, the New York's LGBT Community Center on West 13th Street is restarting on-site activities. When is it going to be? I think shortly. But it's going to be partial. So if you want to look this up, go to gaycenter.org.
But let's look at a place that is sort of a community center, but not, and doing fine, but under attack this week. And that is a barber shop in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, where it has been attacked by somebody, we don't know who, but they fly a rainbow flag outside, which got torn down, and they've suffered other attacks. And so there's a local news report on this that we want to show you.
Only on 12 tonight, a pride flag at an LGBT-owned barbershop in Crown Heights was ripped off of its hinges, captured here in the surveillance video, and then thrown onto the ground just before Pride weekend here in New York City. News 12's Sabrina Franza met with the owner, who says this was the last straw in a string of hateful attacks.
You know, this person tugging so forcefully at the flag that looks like they ended up hurting their own arm doing it.
This person pulls the pride flag not once, not twice, but 3 times, then throws it on the ground.
What adults is going out of their way to be this malicious?
Kane Cutswell has owned camera-ready cuts in this Crown Heights spot for 4 years.
People love that they can come here and be themselves.
Making a living off a good haircut and by creating an inclusive community.
And I like knowing that I can go somewhere where whatever I ask for, there's not going to be any confusion or puzzled looks.
But over the past few weeks and during Pride Month, staff says there's been repeated acts of hate.
There have been piles of dog poo placed around the shop.
And this attack on their pride flag,
and it's happening over and over,
was the last straw.
Gay flag is not only a symbol for LGBT folks, but it has become a universal symbol for this is a safe place to be.
That flag is hanging back up again. Meanwhile, the staff here reported this crime to the NYPD, who are investigating. And while that's happening, they have the surveillance video we showed you playing on a loop, hoping that somebody might recognize this person if they put him on blast and can help them find the person responsible. We're in Crown Heights. Sabrina Franza, News 12.
That's called Camera Ready Cuts, and it's a female, Black, and LGBT-owned shop.
Well, I'm happy to see that they are holding their heads up and seem to be doing fine.
Well, in New Jersey, when they apologized for raiding the gay bars, the attorney general there said, the worst thing was this was the only place people could go and be themselves. And that's what this woman is saying here.
In Ferndale and Arcata, California, small towns in California, they've had some attacks. A lesbian couple woke up to find a cross on their front lawn with a Leviticus verse written on it. A rainbow flag was found cut and burned. A local church advertised itself as offering healing to those hurt by homosexuality. But all of this has resulted in Ferndale holding its first Pride Parade, and the local townspeople in these towns displaying tons of rainbow flags everywhere. So, the haters are not winning these days.
Right, they're not winning at the Department of Education and the Department of Justice. They issued a resource guide for students and families confronting anti-LGBTQI+ harassment in schools. And we will link to that in our email if you sign up for it at gayusatv.org.
And then a young Staten Island gay man, Dylan Spinoza, 20 years old, was on his way home from Pride celebrations and was in the Staten Island ferry terminal where he saw some drunk guy harassing women. and he stepped up to stop him.
Well, the guy was talking about raping the women, then he said he had a gun, so Dylan put him in a headlock and say, hey, calm down. And the guy stabbed him, and in the back. He didn't even know he was stabbed right away. He's still having complications from this. He's been in and out of the hospital. He wants to be work for the fire department in the medical unit. Just a real hero. The perpetrator had 34 prior arrests.
And well, I don't know.
And at our own 23rd Street station in Chelsea, another perp got onto the subway packed with pride revelers and taunted people with anti-gay slurs, stabbing one who has wounds to his chest and torso.
And a trans woman, Nina Gray, was stabbed with a screwdriver by a guy who was slurring her on the A train.
Crime does not pay. The Department of Justice reports that those 3 men who used dating apps to target gay men for violent crimes have been sentenced to 11 years, 22 years, and 20 years, brutalizing multiple victims. As many as 9 men were targeted in and around Dallas using Grindr. Another conspirator will be sentenced in October and faces 26 years. Don't do it.
And then there's this other fight that's going on that is not about violence and attacks and anybody getting physically harmed, but this whole thing about the Avengers t-shirt and who owns the design, and it was licensed to the Gap, and then...
Well, the woman who says that she designed it, Carrie Moyer, sold it to the Gap. Sold it to the Gap, thinking they wouldn't use it. And
well, also to raise money for the Lesbian Herstory Archives. But unfortunately, the Gap put a message on the back that listed all the founders of the Avengers without their permission, and that created much horror. And the end result was that the Gap withdrew the T-shirt. But here's a bulletin. I have acquired, and you can acquire too, the legitimate version of the T-shirt. This is a new reissue by...
be careful, Ann. We're not allowed to sell things on the show.
No, but they have reissued the original version that says the Lesbian Avengers, and on the back, we recruit. For more information...
10% is not enough. Recruit, recruit, recruit.
Right. And we'll put information about that in our show note, too. Oh. I'm quite happy to have a new version. I have an original version, but
send me that information. And another web extra, HuffPost published 50 vintage photos of Pride from 1970 to 1994, and we'll put that in the email.
Okay.
All right, let's get to some obituaries. You knew Richard Meisler?
Rich Meislin was there he is in the front middle, balding, cute. He was a great foreign correspondent for the New York Times, and gay, and out about being gay. In the 1990s, he was assigned to Mexico City, and then suddenly got recalled by the homophobic editor, Abe Rosenthal, who said, I knew he was gay when I sent him there. Why would I be recalling him if I were a bigot? Well, because that's who you are. You're the one who wouldn't let the Times say gay.
He rose from copy boy, survived those days. He became the editor-in-chief of New York Times Digital. And
well, he's the one who brought the internet to the New York Times. He was a really smart guy and a really nice guy. And he was involved in the founding of the National Lesbian and Gay Journalists Association. That's how I knew him, through that. He was also involved with the New York Times Lesbian and Gay Caucus. He was completely unapologetic. He was not closeted when others were. And he just was a calm, smart, wonderful human being. And I was so sad to read that he had died at age 68 of cancer.
Yeah, his husband, Dr. Hendrik Uitendale, said it was Merkel cell carcinoma.
Very sad to lose Rich. What a good guy.
And we're also sad to lose Mike Gravel, former, not gay, but a former senator from Alaska, has died at 91, the only presidential hopeful to sit for an interview on Gay USA in 2008. He lost to a guy named Barack Obama. But in 1971, when newspapers were still under a court order not to publish the Pentagon Papers detailing the hopelessness and evil of the war on Vietnam, he read those papers aloud at a Senate hearing. And after admitting that he supported the war to get elected in the first place.
Yes, to get elected. He beat a more liberal candidate. He had a very mixed record. He was notoriously independent, but he did some things that we would be horrified by. But he also was a great, great independent, and we were thrilled to have him come to Gay USA. And he couldn't have been more personable. But we had to show you this tape. He's on the debate stage in 2008 with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and all the other candidates.
Biden.
Yes, Biden. He goes after Biden in this clip. He was fearless. And we had to show you, he was virulently anti-war. And he goes after the other candidates for their war.
Let's show it. We're going to Brian Williams questioning Mike Gravel.
Senator Gravel, at a forum earlier this year, I want to get this right, you said it doesn't matter whether you are elected president or not, so then why are you here tonight? Shouldn't debates be for candidates who are in the race to win the race?
Ryan, you're right, I made that statement, but that's before I had a chance to stand with them three times. It's like going into the Senate. You know, the first time you get there, you're all excited, my God, how did I ever get here? Then about 6 months later, you say, how the hell did the rest of them get here? And I got to tell you, after standing up with them, some of these people frighten me. They frighten me. When you have mainline candidates that turn around and say that there's nothing off the table with respect to Iran, that's code for using nukes, nuclear devices. I got to tell you, I'm President of the United States. There will be no preemptive wars with nuclear devices. To my mind, it's immoral, and it's been immoral for the last 50 years as part of American foreign policy.
Let's use a little moderator discretion here. Senator Gravel, that's a weighty charge. Who on this stage exactly tonight worries you so much?
Well, I would say the top-tier ones. They made statements. Oh, Joe, I'll include you too. You have a certain arrogance. You want to tell the Iraqis how to run their country. I got to tell you, we should just play get out. Just play get out. It's their country. They're asking us to leave, and we insist on staying there. And why not get out? What harm is it going to do? Oh, you hear the statement, well, my God, these soldiers will have died in vain. The entire deaths of Vietnam died in vain. And they're dying in vain right this very second. You know what's worse than a soldier dying in vain? Is more soldiers dying in vain. That's what's worse.
They're here. Wow, that's very moving. It's very moving to listen to that.
One of the few people who would say that everybody died in Vietnam in vain. And he said, trust the people, not the elite minorities who are in charge.
My brother is very conservative. He served in Vietnam. And when he watched that Vietnam series, he said the whole thing was a political, put-up job farce.
It was. And just a tragic. I often analogize Vietnam to the AIDS epidemic in that it was about people in power who were happy to send everybody else off to die.
Right.
And that was Gravel's attitude, and I couldn't be more grateful for him saying those things.
Okay. Oh, shall we go to international news?
Yes.
All right. Well, my favorite story of the week is a follow-up to that German soccer match with Hungary. You know, the Munich mayor wanted the stadium to protest anti-LGBT laws in Hungary, but he was stopped by the ruling body of the soccer, too political. So other stadiums lit up, and we have the Olympic Stadium lit up in rainbows. But the anti-LGBT fascist leader of Hungary, Viktor Orban, chickened out of going to the game anyway. The Hungarian goalkeeper, Peter Gulási, spoke out for rainbow families. They played the national anthem, and a guy came on the field with the rainbow flag, and tons of people in the stadium were dressed in rainbow colors. So it was just wonderful.
And the game ended in a tie, which ended up eliminating Hungary from the tournament. and sending Germany on. And Germany just got beaten by England, which is regarded as more surrealism in everyday life.
Hungarian Jews in particular have been protesting these new laws, and the EU took on Orban at a meeting over these laws. The Luxembourg Prime Minister Xavier Bettel, who's gay, spoke about his own gay experience. The Prime Minister Rutte of the Netherlands asked whether Hungary would be better off leaving the EU if it's going to disregard the laws of the European Union.
Well, I'm very curious to see whether all this protest, all this condemnation will have any real-world consequences for Orban and other fascist
Orban is plowing all his money into universities that are going to indoctrinate people into right-wing ideology.
Exactly. So can these people be stopped? Now, we managed to vote Trump out of office, but it has not stopped the right wing in this country from continuing to relentlessly attack and try to regain power and exert what power they have now.
They are not chastened. And, Pope Francis, is he chastened? He's nothing if not schizophrenic on LGBT issues. He sent a letter to Father James Martin, SJ, supporting his Outreach LGBT Catholic Ministry, a handwritten note, said nothing concrete on moving the church off its historic condemnation of gay relationships or the Vatican's opposition to Italy's pending LGBT rights bill, but saying to Martin, I see you are continually seeking to imitate the style of God. But Martin doesn't challenge the Catholic teaching either.
Well, I read an analysis of this letter to Martin by someone who said, look, the Pope is a people pleaser. He's actually, whoever comes to him and goes like this, he goes along with them. So
please like me, please like me.
Exactly. So to expect him to exert independent leadership, like Mike Gravel, is useless. It's a dream that is not going to happen.
We want deeds, not words.
Exactly. But we got some more bad words from the president of the Czech Republic, Miloš Zeman, who said trans people are disgusting to me. Why, thank you for sharing.
But he understands gays and lesbians and so on, but not those trans people. In Istanbul, well, things are getting worse. Police fired tear gas to disperse the gathering pride celebration there. They detained some. It was banned. They tried to hold it on a side street. Pride used to be very big in Istanbul, but Erdogan caters to fundamentalists. Turkey's hostility to LGBT rights is an obstacle to them joining the European Union. It's also the largest jailer of journalists in the world, and one was among those arrested at this event on Saturday.
They used rubber bullets, too. They arrested 20 people. But one thing that's interesting is the Pride marchers, insisted on continuing to try to conduct themselves on the streets. And as you say, took side streets, moved around. Tourists joined those Pride activists, right, and supported them in their fight against the police in Istanbul.
And I'm sorry, Rich, I skipped over Malawi. They held their first Pride parade, 50 activists in the capital, Lilongwe, on Saturday, pushing for recognition by the government, legalization of same-sex marriage, and equal access to health care. Many covered their faces or wore protective masks for anonymity, but the leader of Nyasa Rainbow Alliance, organizer of the event, said that, look, we're the targets of violence. We've got to stand up for ourselves.
Again, so moving to see whether it's a small town in California or the nations in Africa or anywhere, people rising up from the grassroots on their own to make this decision to fight for respect is so moving.
Okay.
All right. In Brazil, random attacks continue. In Recife, a trans woman was set on fire. She is currently hospitalized, and a teen has been arrested. I'm glad we don't have to report her death. But a young gay man, Gabriel Carvalho Garcia, 22, was shot dead at a barber shop in Sao Paulo.
Well, some justice coming in Honduras. This is a huge decision. The Inter-American Court of Human Rights ruled that the Honduras government was guilty of extrajudicial execution of trans activist Vicky Hernandez, 26, in 2009. It's a long case. It's a milestone. It's a 12-year fight by the family and human rights groups. And in addition, 14 trans women and 16 gay men were murdered by the state security forces during the 2009 coup. And the government must pay reparations. I mean, it's only $30,000, but they must pay reparations to the family.
It's a good precedent. It's a good start, a baseline.
Applies to all of Latinx America.
And we do have a string of good stories to report. In Norway, the government is proposing a 46-point action plan for LGBT people, including a ban on conversion therapy, and they are funding pride events in Norway.
In Hong Kong, a gay couple won a high court battle as a judge ruled that a discriminatory housing policy is oppressively unfair. The case was brought by Henry Lee and his late partner, Edgar Ng, that fought the housing authorities disallowing adding occupants or transferring ownership of flats to the home ownership only to heterosexual couples and 8 other family members, but not gay partners. So we went through this in New York in the 1980s, but the judge said that it was unconstitutional and violated the Hong Kong Bill of Rights. They have a Bill of Rights in Hong Kong.
Not for long. In New Zealand, Prime Minister Ardern is standing up for Laurel Hubbard, the trans weightlifter who is on the New Zealand Olympic team. And one of her competitors is also wishing her good luck and supporting her in the face of criticism that she's been selected for the team.
And we told you that Alan Turing was going to be on the 50-pound note in the United Kingdom. He is on it. He was the code breaker during World War II, persecuted for being gay. And his home in Wilmslow outside of Manchester is up for sale. It could be yours for £1.1 million.
In Canada, the House of Commons, by a vote of 263 to 63, has criminalized conversion therapy.
Worse news, Hong Kong has censored a documentary on marriage equality from Taiwan.
Yes. But in Spain, the cabinet has passed a draft bill for gender self-determination. This is a trend now that trans people or non-binary people are allowed to declare themselves without having to go through some medical examination or other long process of proving themselves. They can self-declare, as all of us can with our gender identity.
Tel Aviv had 100,000 at Pride, and police say they thwarted multiple terrorist attacks, including arresting an armed man on his way to the parade.
In France, the National Assembly has okayed medically assisted reproduction for single women and lesbians. This is supplied by the government free as part of their medical program. So this is a big deal. They've been fighting for that for years.
In Mexico, the state of Baja California Sur unanimously passed a bill banning conversion therapy and easing changes on birth certificates for trans people.
Again, self-declaration. All right, moving on.
Okay, all right. Update on David Archuleta, the American Idol #2, who 13 years ago, who won on GMA, came out, says he's not dated a man and still believes in saving himself from marriage. Still an active moron. They don't do same-sex weddings.
Okie dokie. Did you see the story about what happened on America's Got Talent?
I don't know that I did.
It's another Simon Cowell competition show. So this 5-man singing group comes on, and he says, "Okay, who are you?" And they say, "You've heard of One Direction. We are the other direction."
I saw the picture.
I saw the performance. We are the world's gayest boy band. And they proceed to define themselves in an old Village People way. I'm the cowboy, I'm the jock, I'm the power. they succeeded in going on to the next round. They performed a song that they had written themselves called Girl, You're the Best. And it's all about their best friend, basically. I love you, but not like that. and the judges thought it was hilarious. And they met at middle school show choir camp when they were 12 and agreed that they would get together when they were 21 and form this group, and they did. They all came out to each other when they were 12, and they are moving on at America's Got Talent.
It's never too late. And PBS, by the way, did a short documentary on a senior prom for LGBTQ seniors. It's 14 minutes, it's very sweet, and we will link to it in our email. Go to gayusatv.org to sign up for our email or to support Gay USA.
Now, everybody seems very excited about this Marvel Disney character, Loki.
Tom Hiddleston. It's a Disney Plus series. He has been confirmed as bisexual. The series began in 2011, but in the third episode, Loki says he's got a thing for a little of both in a scene awash in bisexual lighting. The series director, Kate Herron, is bisexual and said, I know this is a small step, but I'm happy and my heart is so full. And in an online posting, Loki's sex was identified as fluid. Hiddleston said Loki is a shapeshifter. There was this person in the Reclaim Pride Parade, the Queer Liberation March, who was carrying a sign about this and said, I said, oh, that's great. We read about it this week. She said, the character's been out in the book forever.
And didn't Tom Hiddleston say that he is bisexual and now he feels good playing a bisexual character?
No, but there's nothing wrong with it.
No, but I thought that's what I read. And I also saw the new documentary Ailey about Alvin Ailey that is now in theaters in New York and LA. Well, the Variety said it's good, but they wanted more, that it was a little elusive, and I found that too. It's thought-provoking. It's a tale of both triumph and tragedy. You know, he died in 1989 of AIDS, long before the drugs were available that might have saved him. You want to delve into his closeted status, his genius, all of this, and it's all a little around the edges, but it's certainly worth watching.
Okay. Another web extra we're going to send is a remixed I Am What I Am featuring Jay Harrison Gee at BroadwayWorld.org, .com, a stirring rendition for our times.
All right. So
my timer screen is off.
we have about 30 seconds.
Well, Trevor the Musical is having open auditions online. Go to trevorthemusical.com/casting, and you can read about how you can be in that show if you're 12 to 16 years old.
It's been a heck of a Pride Month. Sign up for our weekly show note at gayusatv.org. Thank you for joining us this month and every week on Gay USA.
I need a nap.
Me too. Bye. See you next week.
Take care.